Hey folks, Nick Tuckert here with the Historical Fencing Guild. Pardon me while I deal with the fidgeting. I have been cleaning. Historical Fencing Guild is brought to you with the generous support of our good friends over at the Independent Creator Directory. That's IndieCD.org, your one-stop shop for the best and the brightest authors, artists, musicians, etc. We are also made possible. $40. A single $40 payment will get you guys a lifetime support of a website hosted for all you small creators out there like myself who are trying to make it in this big world. It's a white pages for creators. It's a great site. I'm proud to be part of it. Pardon me, like I said, I'm a little scrambled today. We're also made possible by sales of the Simple Sword, the Fighting Axe, and the Simple Spear. All part of my ongoing book series of Western martial arts manuals. And our patrons, Off in the Woods, Frog G, Ronald Rain, Bladed Thesis, Brian K. Morris, Cindy Kep, and Steve Augusto all come together every month to give me a little bit of money that I can pile together and use to buy things like lighting for the backyard, to do night training with the trainers that you see me review. The only way I could afford them is from my amazing Patreon folks over at www.patreon.com/The Historical Fencing Guild. So I'm eternally grateful to you all. Today's going to be an interesting one. I'm going to get right into it because I have heard a lot of discussion online, and it's something I'm seeing come up again, of the rapierist versus a katana wielder. And I find it fascinating because I see in several of the groups I'm in people who are in different training styles, okay? Allegedly. And you have to understand, online there is a whole lot of alleged. Talking about what, this style would beat that style every time. And I do want to put a caveat on this broadcast that there are storms west of me trying to come in, so my stream may be a little fumbly today. But I don't understand why there's such an argument. Get some trainers, establish some rules, and test it out. Now, we have a situation where you can get a decent katana trainer for sub $50 easy. That's not a problem. Rapier trainers are a little trickier, but you can get a decent approximation from PHA for about the same price. Use the link in the descriptions, and I get a little back. If you are a martial artist and you find yourself engaging in these conversations where, well, to beat this style, you need to fight this style, I don't understand why there's still argument. Guys, just get up, put your money where your mouth is, and say, hey, cool. Let's spar. Let's find out if this is better than that. Now, I will say, and a valid argument is coming out of Team Katana on this, that most duels where rapier is discussed are not fought from the actual encounter would be fought from the draw. And because katana are made for a quick draw, would a rapier be able to hold up to it? Now we need to talk about a few things on the subject of rapiers for this discussion, because it's kind of interesting. We have a great many myths where people are confusing the rigidity of a rapier versus and its toughness, its ability to be struck with a foil. And this is very, very common when people think rapier and they are not versed in the weapon, they think foil. A rapier is still going to have a fairly wide blade, even if it has, it's a double-edged blade. We're looking 36 to 45 inches, somewhere in there. There are extreme examples of shorter and longer, but this is a general good range to play around with. That's still because a rapier's actual weight is roughly that of an arming sword. Okay? So, I know if this were a live steel, which it's not for safety and to keep YouTube happy, if this were a live steel arming sword, it might be a little wider, but this is about the length. You add about that much to a rapier, but it's taken the stock, narrowed it at the base, and extended it. Added a bit more weight at the back, so the point of balance, which should right now be 2.5 hands out, if I thought. So about here. Let's dial that. Okay. Gets moved to here. This side. What it means is it becomes very nimble, but loses power in the cut. Obviously, it's a rapier. But it does not lose mass. And there's still a lot of steel there. The other thing that seems tested in these conversations is that somehow a rapier is just going to stand there and the katana is going to cut through it. Now, I actually do not dislike katana in any way, shape, or form. Katanas. I dislike their bizarre PR campaign because all a katana is, frankly, is a bastard sword with a really good PR department, or a messer with a really good PR department. And I would say it's closer to a messer than a bastard sword, because bastard swords are usually double-edged. And let's see. A bunch of people saying good morning. We have a lot of chat going on. So I will get into that in a minute, but I want to talk about this. Now, and I have to think about this, is the katana draw faster than a rapier draw? Probably. Especially the people who run longer rapiers. Because you have to counter draw. But the other thing that people get confused with is they think of a katana being paired with a wakizashi, so you can use that in smaller area, and you supposedly couldn't with a rapier. That's not quite as true, because I fought it. But they're usually paired with a parry dagger or a buckler of some sort. Rapiers don't use, and they can, and many times were, solo wielded, but they were almost equally with parry dagger or something else that one could use, as well as the hand. It gets a little dicey. I find this interesting. The katana might have a faster draw online, but it telegraphs a lot more. It is very difficult to draw a katana for that first strike without a lot of telegraphing. It's doable, but it is difficult. And likewise, a rapier has the same problem. So getting them out fast, you're much more likely to pull a dagger quick in close quarters than mess with a rapier. That's, like I said, why they were worn. Or use whatever you have offhand, maybe a walking stick, who knows. But one of the first things if you're dealing with a more powerful weapon and you have a lighter weapon, This does simplify the processes for you in that you don't parry if you don't absolutely have to. It's much better to void and refuse the blade. So a powerful strike can come in very quickly as long as you can void that. Move, you know, pull the boxer dodge and get out of the way. You can come offline. Don't engage their weapon at all because you're not fighting sword to sword. You are not fighting the weapon. You are fighting the person behind it. A lot of people lose track of that. Now, is it appropriate to fight a weapon? Sure. Beats happen all the time, and especially with the stronger weapon. So if you're going like saber versus rapier, a beat is a very natural thing to do. Katana versus rapier, a beat is a very natural thing to do. But there is give and take. Now, I don't want anyone thinking I'm undermining the katana. It's a dreadfully effective sword, but unclothed, I'm not unclothed, unarmored, unclothed too, for that matter, but if both weapons are drawn, it's going to go to the rapierist. Usually they have reach, and it takes much less effort to thrust a thrusting weapon into the meaty bits raw strength wise than it does to do a concussive cut. You have to engage a lot more power, a lot more force to do that. But a concussive cut does a whole lot of surface damage, and it's a lot easier to target and hit because you have a wider surface area that you're hitting. And that just makes sense. So it stops being about the wrench. It starts being about the mechanic, guys. And I keep hearing these discussions, and I keep seeing these discussions where people go on and on. This weapon beats that weapon. Now, I'm more interested when it's this style beats that style. But at the end of the day, the sword that is best is going to be the one you have. What is the best sword? The one you have access to. Because without it, you don't have a sword. What's best for you becomes a sliding scale. But the best way in modern society to, settle this debate instead of arguing back and forth is to simply, safely try it. And what I find among many martial artists, many practitioners of different styles, is that a great many people are not cross training, and they're not cross sparring. Because remember, when you're sparring with someone, it is not, they say physical chess, and it is, but at the end of the day, it's a physical conversation. It literally is point and counterpoint. And some people speak softly and precisely and delicately. Your rapier guys, your small sword guys, definitely. Some people speak a bit louder, and that's where you're going to get, the equivalent of your concussive weapons, your sabers, your messers, your katana. Although it is important to remember the style of katana is fought is part of the weapons application, and the katana is fairly unique because if we are talking historically, the reason the katana evolved the way it did is you have to remember that Japan was an island nation with fairly limited resources and limited trade. It tended to isolate historically. So they used, and I can't remember, I can't get the word to come out. That you'll hear it. This is made with like Takahama. It starts with a T. The Japanese steel. Well, the problem is all that is made. There's another word for it in circles. It's essentially pot metal. The iron that they had access to, what that they could alloy into steel, was highly. It contained many impurities. Now, how do you deal with impurities? You do a Damascus. You fold it, and that allows the impurities to work out to the surface. You get crystalline structure that's very hard, and it pushes out. The more you fold it, the harder you can get the metal to within limits. But hard is not always the best, which is why there's a dual tempering, where the spine of the katana is tempered to be different than the blade edge, which they cover. It gets covered with clay so that they can change the temperatures of the hardening, and that clay leaves a line, that kind of wavy line, the Hamon line. That's to give the spine a bit of flexibility, but still, comparatively in period, a lot of the katana were very brittle comparatively. So a katana is much more meant to be a slicing implement than a just chopping implement. That means it's wielded different. Much of a katana stroke that is effective is a mix of a draw stroke and the natural curvature of the blade, which not only makes it a little more comfortable to draw, especially when mounted, it makes it more likely to do a not shallower. It makes a deeper slice. It does not make as forceful a cut. Does that make sense? And that gives you a very clean cut if it's done right. And it's funny because I saw, it's not that I'm skipping too much, but I want to get to something I saw come by. And it's around here somewhere. Use the right tool for the job whenever possible, but still the right guy behind the tool is going to win. And when you see these, and like I said, a lot of the katana is based on its marketing. And a lot of that marketing originally came from the great samurai movies, the Kurosawa films. I mean, these are great. You really should watch them. They're just phenomenal. And it evolved through the course of anime into a more super heroic aspect. So it's fascinating to see what people think they can do versus what they can do. Now, I'm seeing some great points, and I'm going to go through them. But the katana is, like I said, it's not a bad sword. And like a saber, it is very comfortable to draw. And because of the slight curve, you can draw a slightly longer blade overall. It's just basic human anatomy. Now, longer blades were, if you look at the way they were worn, of course, they were worn at the hip the vast majority of time. The backdraw devotees are confusing transport with carry, especially for a longer weapon. It just doesn't work well. But you'll notice that the way the katana was worn, it's through a sash. There's some string knotting, but it's a fixed mount. Oh, how do I explain this? Okay, give me a second. The katana's attached, basically. I don't have the means to do it, so I'm just going to have to offhand lock it in. So you could rotate it, but basically, unless it was being held out, the katana is fixed in the draw, so it comes out like that. It's mounted. You have swivel points, but because of the way it's worn, and I'm actually looking into better understanding that. That's why I'm talking about this. I still study, guys. It's the pivot point of the sword, for the most part, is worn. Now, if the sword is loose, you have things like batu techniques, which is fighting sword in sheath. That's fun. Your rapier sheaths, however, what am I doing? This has a home. Pardon me. Were worn much relatively looser in that there was cordage that came down from the belt that attached. I'm streaming right now, Xander. We're not, it's funny, but we're not going to have a Nerf fight while I'm streaming. Sorry, guys. Later, though, bud. I know, and it's funny. I'm doing my stream. If you look at how even arming swords were both, they were on, their sheaths were attached to frogs, which gave a lot of flexibility in its position. Why? Because with a weapon like this, you're counter drawing. So what that means is, let me move it. I'm way off so you can see the motion. If I'm grabbing okay, I'm going to use, pardon me, this. You're not going and pull. You are pulling. Do you see the difference? It's not just a straight pull from a fixed point. You're pulling opposite with the sheath to get the weapon out online. It's a different technique. And understanding that there's accommodations to the way the weapon is rigged can affect a lot. So we have to see practically how it's drawn. There is some measure that a dual-handed weapon does give you much more leverage, and it can be more agile, in at least in the cuts, because you're counter pulling. Okay, it's a little different with the katana because the katana still is a fluid draw. It's a slicing weapon. Several very strongly curved weapons from Southeast Asia have that that slicing element built into the style. If you look at the swords you find in India, if you look at the shamshirs, that's my speech impediment, does not like that word. The talwars, it's not just straight strike. There's a breaking of the wrist that turns any strike into a draw cut. A lot of these straight strike styles are developed when you have to deal with hard over soft armor. So you need concussion to get through. A lot of times, if you do it right, you're not going to fully damage the armor. The force will transfer. I swear I saw something just move out of that box. Which is really weird because it's this box. Huh. I'll check the rerun later. But if you're not chopping through armor, a a slight curve, especially on the striking edge, even if the blade isn't as curved, can really make a much deeper cut of the flesh if you're not planning to just go straight through bone. And these are the logistics. You have to look at the logistics of the actual weaponry. Then we have to look at the styles that are fought. And looking at recorded bouts is fascinating because the duel, I believe, last I checked, there were 12 recorded duels, like honor style duels. And I cannot cite my source, but it was on a historical forum between the Portuguese and the Japanese. I want to find this again. So we're putting a big asterisk on this one. Okay. This is something I fairly trusted sources. But of those 12 recorded duels, 11 went in the rapierist's favor. Because especially if you start with the sword drawn, it's faster and more subtle. And people overestimate what is necessary to kill someone. And I hate to put it that way, but that's the real difficulty in what we do. Now, the simple matter and the best matter for any of this is if you don't fight, you study it and learn. If you do, you meet up and you spar. Now, that will tell you which one of you is better than the other that day. Because no one's top is the same as everyone else's all the time. You know what I'm saying? The best you can do one day isn't necessarily the best you can do the next day. Now, I've skipped the chat for nearly half hour. I apologize about that. I just had been caught up in this really fascinating discussion. I think it was on Sticks and Steel or one of the Facebook groups. And I barely got into it, but I was enjoying reading what was being called back and forth. And I get DMs about this sort of thing all the time. So let me deal with this comment dump real quick. Yeah, Tamahagane. I had to see it to pronounce it. And yeah, it's pig iron. It's absolute garbage. Foxy says hi, Xander. He says hi. Let's see. Now, we're going to go through the chat real quick. And we've got Alec was the first one in. Hello, Alec. I hope you're doing well. Of course, do not practice any of this because you are a minor. So do not practice this. Evening, Alec. Evening, Foxy. How's your day been? Okay, we got greetings and loud. Okay, loud. Okay, I'm going to. And hi, Foxy. Hi, Thesis. But now you're treating yourself with taco time. Taco time. Oh, you overdid it? Tacos are beautiful. I had almost a bacon carbonara. Maddie made an interesting dish. With tweaking, it'll be amazing. And let's see. And Alex says I have a fire-breathing dragon now, or smoke is coming out of its mouth. I haven't decided, but it's purple. I approve. Nothing wrong with the purple haze. The canvas I'm working on specifically, the canvas itself, for the size it is around $67. So if I end up selling this, Oh, monthly? No. God, did I say monthly, guys? I've been really out of it. One-time lifetime fee, not monthly. No, guys. I am totally apologizing for that. It is one time. Call. I'm going to hear about this. A one-time lifetime fee, not monthly. Oh God. The reason is I'm having to adjust my StreamYard subscription for some things behind the screen, and it is just glitching badly. This monthly would be screwed. Yes. Well, I would be too once I'm 19. Let's see. I saw a picture earlier today of someone who took their small sword and taped a Nerf dart on the end. Okay, that's funny. That is funny. Ah. Good morning to everyone on the other side of the planet. Well, and good morning to you, dear Syndicate, or them, or whoever. I took a nap, so it feels like morning. Kitty, if it works, I will not advise using professional actual tips, not Nerf darts. I love Nerf. I mean, I love Nerf. I really love Nerf. I have a whole lot of Nerf guns that are currently being toted and tucked away. But I love Nerf because around here it's stay strapped or get clapped. I love Nerf. But I wouldn't never use that as a safety issue. That's just not what they're for. And Cindy's sharing the link to this program right now. And good morning to everyone who's probably watching the rerun, hopefully. That's true, too. And hello, Trelena. Hello, Joe Bachman. I have been already chastised. I need no more. I ate and now must veg. Yes. Someone who shall remain nameless argued with me that a rapier couldn't cut well enough to be a valid dueling weapon. He was, of course, a katana fanboy who believes anime fights were real. Rapiers are not terribly good cutters, but cutting is not the only way to duel. You do not need to put a huge amount of damage if you put the right amount of damage in the right place. And find the Historical Fencing Guild on other nights here at the Historical Fencing Guild. Thank you. Please like, share, and subscribe. From what I've seen from a lot of anime, fights are unrealistic, and the people animating them don't know what the style is or don't care. I've been doing my research and listening to Nick's streams. I'll continue to do your research always. And remember, when you watch an anime, you have to compare that to the animated fights in a superhero movie, or American animation. They're not doing it to be educational. They're doing it to be entertaining and make it look awesome. Ironically, there's one case where an anime was translated into a live action series, and live action had better fights, even though it still had a bit of the wire-fu elements. That would be the Rurouni Kenshin / Samurai X, for those of us who were unfortunately exposed to it that way. There was a live action, I believe 3 live action movies. And the fights I've seen from that, I saw the first movie through. I haven't seen the others, but they're better because they don't have the anime shortcuts to make things look more impressive that aren't. Very good, very enjoyable. That being said, not particularly realistic. Now we can go over again. We can discuss films that have actual realistic fights, but realistic fights aren't very pretty. They're not very dramatic, and if they're done right, they're over very quickly. Pardon my hydration. But I'm glad you're doing your research, because what can work and look good can happen. There's an anime called Le Chevalier d'Eon. So it's a French inspired, it's based on historical individual, uh, supernatural anime. Now, in the first, like, we'll say 3 or 4 episodes before the supernatural elements get too heavily added, they have some amazing renderings of actual vaguely realistic sword fights with rapiers. And I think they did that so that when they went supernatural, everything got dialed up in weirdness. And this is not one for you, Alec. I believe it's a mature title, but when you're old enough, there are. It highlights the difference between the supernatural and the natural fighting, which I find intriguing. But yes, just like how firearms work in Hollywood, just like how hand works in Hollywood, what's generated for entertainment oftentimes is not very educational. However, that is a choice, and you in your own products can write from a position of accuracy. And I'm not trying to become, an authenticity Nazi a la the society, but I will say there's nothing wrong with studying what you're doing, and I think it can be done cooler when it's at a level where the person behind it knows what they're doing. And let's see. I'm okay. I'm not terribly far behind. A martial arts and tea. That's Thesis's channel. Now I don't have access to my videos for Thesis's channel through here to run the commercials. I'm going to do it. And what makes it harder to draw? It's not harder to draw. It's actually easier to draw. Well, depending on how it's worn, and again, that fixed pivot I got into. One of the cases I was looking into, apparently, I got ahead, didn't even realize this was in the chat. But how it's worn. The rapier being on a looser frog allows for some shenanigans with the angle and stuff. The katana doesn't need those shenanigans. So it becomes a game. And the simple sword. Yes, guys, if you want to learn Western swordsmanship and you want to get your start, the simple sword is made to be easy to process and easy to understand. I made a few slight errors in that I used the little splashes of color to make it easier to track, taken from my notes, and I did not know how much that would up the printing cost. I'm working on something of a similar content that I can publish for a lower price that will give you good parts of that, for the people who want a more focused experience. If the katana had a slit at the top, like some douche, I'm sure it would be scimitars. Fast, yes, absolutely. And you can find my art at DA. Use the right tool for the job. That whenever you can, and support Nick's efforts to teach people to be dangerous safely. Patreon.com/The Historical Fencing Guild. Yes, please. Weapons don't beat anything. It's the person behind the weapon. To an extent, weapons are force multipliers, and they do make a lot of things a lot easier. But I still find it interesting that for all our insane advances Uh, you know, men and women still go into combat carrying a knife not much long, not much different in blade length from this trainer. It's almost like no matter how far advanced we get, sometimes the basics still exist. I have better trainers than that, but that's the knife trainer that was handy. And I'm actually learning about Japan's trade and history and on their trade. It's okay. Yes, it's there. It's a fascinating thing. I think you'll look into it. You'll enjoy it. Repeated the word. It happens. Tamahagane. And I knew that word, but pulling it up, my brain kept trying to flip between the Japanese symbols, the katakana, and the English. So like my dyslexia partied in my head at that moment. But yeah, pig iron. And see, one reason this is important is you'll hear a lot of drill makers. Our bits are made with the legendary Tamahagane steel. To be same as the samurai, and it's like that's crud steel. It's terrible. So you see, and High Xander, we already passed that one on, and let's see. So he said, "Yep, yeah, a gent in Texas developed a way to test the amount of force needed to pierce an object, simulating skin with wet hide. He figured only a couple pounds. It only takes a couple pounds of pressure to get through. I mean, human skin is not that different from pig skin in all realism. And I mean, paper cuts. Yeah, paper is flimsy, weak, and can cut you. Source: many paper cuts over time. Yes. Joe Bachman teleports in, drops light, grabs a piece of chocolate. How did you know I had chocolate? Tips the host and teleports back out. Hi, Joe. Bye, Joe. See, Joe, you take he took the last piece of chocolate. You'll have to break it up with him. I have a question, but we need to wait till you catch up with chat first. Okay, well, fire away. And see, they draw cut well. That's, believe it or not, my early katana studies greatly influenced my saber and rapier, where I became very fond of draw cuts and learning to miss and turn by breaking my wrist off, fleeting contact into a solid draw cut. It was one of my favorite techniques, and how I was able to start my friend John into being a legal fencer for the SCA before he became an accomplished fencer. Because he already knew how to sword fight. He just had to learn how to get his skills to work on the with the weapon at hand. At least the Xers. Yes, they absolutely did. Yes, good bit of slicing and dicing. Now, hacking and whacking, no. And tip cuts were a thing. The problem with tip cuts are rarely fatal. A tip cut is really good for disarming someone. A tip cut is really good for a duel to the first blood. But it is pretty stout. But it won't do a lot of. You can disembowel somebody with a tip cut, but again, that's knowing where to take the tool and apply it on the target. It starts to become very artistic, understanding the difference between a line and a shape, for example. And yes, there are 3 live action. I've seen them all. I found them pretty good. And this is the link. Got fighting questions? Axe. For my axe, this is the link for the simple spear. And we've caught up. So, Kitty, it's a great time for you to drop that question you were asking for, because I have caught up with the chat if I haven't answered it already. Now, I didn't really do any retail research today. I usually do, but due to me having some medical issues, nothing bad. Not, I had online doctor appointment thing and some events that need dealt with around the house. I have not been able to check if PHA has anything dramatic. So what I will do real quick is click deal of the day and just make sure there's nothing at least in there too outstanding. And right now, the only thing are a set of dang bong, which are 1.25 inches by a 12-inch set of two clubby sticks for $10, which is a good deal for that. Although honestly, I just get oak dowels. Okay, I have a dance student who's just got out of a toxic home situation. She's safe now and wants to learn how to defend herself, but she has zero previous experience. Can you bring her here to learn? Um, First off, for legal and YouTube reasons, I have to insist on I I can only work with adults. Uh, but if she wants to learn, we can do practical discussions. I do that every so often, and it's actually with the weather being nicer, it might be a good time to go back over. I know that practical defense and women's defense is something that needs to be talked about. It's with uh, with the bear question that's being bandied around. Which would you rather be with? Uh, in the woods with a bear or a man, which would a woman feel safer? And a woman almost always chooses a bear. Um, Having been in the woods with both, I don't blame them. And okay, she wants to learn dirk dagger fighting. We can certainly go through some basics. I can teach some rudimentary uh, knife techniques and stuff. If I'll message you with some questions about her so I can tailor something up to help. If anything, to build up the confidence and competence. So we certainly can do that. Not a problem. And Alex says, I forgot to mention that I'm probably getting access to go back to physical therapy as I am needing it again. Well, while I'm sorry that you are needing physical therapy, probably physical, I'm surprised it's not occupational with the hands, but that's a good thing. Okay. People treat diagnoses like they're bad things. The news is not what you want to hear, but finding out what's going on is always better than not knowing, because then you can adapt, uh, keep up, work with it, and make it happen. You know, you physical therapy is why I'm not in a wheelchair. I'll never give you guys flack for physical therapy. I have to do my hand exercises every day if I want to keep my hands up. And when I fail, because sometimes of all the things I do, I forget to do my hand exercises, I can hurt myself, and sometimes rather badly. So we have to do the things we have to do to stay in shape. And yes, you have nothing wrong, but you have something wrong. Oh, well, hi, I have an undiagnosed hypermobility condition in some of my joints. Not all of them, to make things more complex. And some of it may be just because I'm malformed, but it happens. Okay, so she's turning 21. Um, I will, like I said, I will gladly go through. I think what she'll need to focus on first is the practical uh, situational awareness training. Then we'll worry about, you know, relative health and stuff. I'm sure you know her conditions, and I can ask you some questions, and I'll be happy to tailor whatever is needed to from what I know. How I approach from the self defense standard is a little different than what I normally project here because it has to be more practical and it has to be more, yes, even more practical and simplistic and trained. Um, the problem with any weapon based style is there's the real possibility of somebody taking it away from you and using it against you. So you need to be intimately acquainted with anything you're carrying in that, and as well as working within the laws of your area, which can be problematic. So we'll talk. I also highly encourage her to look into judo or jujitsu, something with some redirect. If depending on her physicality. Uh, for my case, a lot of what I do, open-handed and stuff, comes from a mix of things right through the filter of therapeutic defense, how to deal with somebody who's special needs trying to do you harm. So I have to deliberately, I talk a lot about training scars and being careful not to adversely affect your self-defense. I have to constantly maintain training scars, essentially, to keep myself limited in response. And but I'll be happy to help any way I can. That's what we're all about here. And let's see. So, referencing what Alex said about his back and legs, I'd rather have the diagnosis and be able to treat something. And ugh, I know the feeling too well. I have knots and muscles in my leg, then the pain is just getting almost unbearable. Or I haven't got to that point yet. Alec, there are several things that can be causing that. So between now and when you get physical therapy, please monitor your hydration. I am not a medical professional, but I would say monitor your hydration, your vitamin and mineral intake. A lot of your diet can cause a lot of things that can exacerbate cramping and muscle knots. It may not just be neurological. It could also be part of just late in life growing spurts. They can happen with hormonal changes. It can affect how you grow. So really talk to your doctor and be sure you're anytime you have a problem. And again, talk to your doctor. I'm not a medical professional. This is not medical advice. This is what I do. You want a whole circle approach. So you have to make sure you're getting enough sleep, enough to drink, the proper diet, and exercise. By working on that, it may mitigate your issues. Now, I'm not saying you'll get rid of them, but it may help in combination with PT, whatever else the doctor's diagnosed. Always listen to your doctor. But I'm glad my mom is on the same page of getting help for me. I'm glad to hear it. Best do physical therapy before it gets there again. And yes, theory is good, but your friend is going to need practical training like IRL. That's why I'm saying find yourself a local martial arts studio. The short, fast, and ugly way to start would be reach out to your local police department and see if they are doing I'm trying to remember what the rad, it's like rape, assault, defense, something. But there are courses that can be done. Now learn, and I have no problem with anyone learning, any adult learning how to use a knife. I don't know if that can give you a false sense of safety. So you can learn it, and I can teach basics, dagger, so some limited knife work and stuff. But when you're talking a knife, especially, it gets into grappling because that is very short range. So what you want to start out with, and I know it doesn't give the shortcut. It doesn't give the yes, I have a weapon, I feel safe. I would rather make you safer, even if that makes you feel less safe, than make you feel safer and actually have you be in more danger. So it's definitely something you want to go to if they're in that kind of situation. Hand to hand, you want to talk to a martial arts studio, somebody with a proper background for that, because I can give theory online, I could show demonstrations, but I can never tailor and teach and build somebody up the way I have in person through the cyberspace. It's one of those that's a meat space requirement. So you really need to find somebody who will help you and help her build up the meat space reality to be able to do self-defense. What she should focus on first and foremost is situational awareness and basic athleticism. So you say she's one of your dancers. That's a great start. That means she's at least fairly mobile. The best thing anyone can do to stay safe is understand the threats that are around you in a vigilant but not hyper vigilant way, and stay connected. Like, mindfulness really is one of the greatest and most powerful defense tools out there, and it's under discussed. Because if you can see a threat or a potential threat and avoid it before it happens, you don't have to then worry about the after effects. Because when you need, what I don't teach people from a mindset of how to win fights. Well, especially when we get into self-defense things, it's how to neutralize the threat. And the first goal of neutralizing a threat in real world is to not make another threat. Okay? So if going, hey, we just left the theater with our son. Hey, let's take a cut down crime alley to get to where we're going. Yeah. And I know that's obvious seeming, and that's obvious and sarcastic, but I do like to pepper the absurd in on serious matters. It makes it a little more palatable. So becoming situationally aware, the basic skills, those will keep you alive a lot faster than the martial skills. Then, if she's already doing dance, her movement should be good. She should theoretically have decent footwork and awareness of where she is, and decent spatial sense if she's doing dance. Depends on the kind of dance. Then what we have to do is find styles that will work with how she moves and work with her personality and her approach. And by looking at these things, this is how I teach my students who come from a background of abuse. You build them up very slowly so that you're building their awareness and then their confidence, and their awareness and their confidence. And eventually their confidence catches up and their competence catches up. But like I said, I am not a open-handed instructor. In Skyrim terms, I usually teach one-handed fighting, one-handed weapon fighting. I can't teach two-handed weapon fighting too, but I do a lot more one-handed. I can teach basic archery too, but I go. My point being, for brawling one-handed, open-handed stuff, you need the right instructor, and you need to take time with her to find one that will give her what she needs. Because when you come into, I want to learn to fight, I want to learn to sword fight, the intent is just as important as the result. You need to be coming at it from the right mind space and the realistic mind space. So that can be very hard. It can be very hard for somebody because we all want to be the hero of our own story and our own mind. And I want you to be the main character of your story. But heroism and survival in real life don't always look like we're taught to look for them in film. 1 second, please. We've been cleaning and my allergies are going nuts. So I hope that is helpful to Kitty. I hope that's helpful to everyone who's had to listen to this. Okay, you've been pretty good on your water intake. Okay, cool. And we are past the hour. So what I'm going to say is I hope you enjoyed this. I hope it was educational. I think we got some really good discussion in. If this has value to you, especially if you're watching this in the rerun, please comment. Seriously, I check all my comments for the people who view in the reruns. Please like this video. Please share it. Please subscribe so that you don't miss anything. And if you have it in your heart, consider joining Patreon. It's on my to work on to expand. I have plans. It's going to get there. Just it takes me a while sometimes. But guys, keep your guard up. Do your drills. Be kind to yourself and each other. And as always, thank you for supporting your local Swordmaster. I will be back actually Monday on my other channel, the @Nicholas Tuckert channel, for Never Mind the Furthermore, where I help writers and artists and other creatives build up and promote and just have a good time. We actually have our friend Mike Jimmy Lorsha DeBron will be a guest on there while we talk about his Kickstarter and things like that. I don't usually do that because it's not a shill show, but for the right people, I try to help them, and I've been involved with Mike Jimmy and some other neat projects, so it's good to know. But I will be back here next Friday talking swords and shenanigans, whatever you guys need. I talk to the guild members throughout the week, and we try to support you in your efforts. So until I see you then, toodles, folks.